Welcome everyone. So the Tasmanian trout season has just reopened, and because of that, I thought I would tie for you a classic Tasmanian stillwater wet fly pattern, and that is the Sloane Fur Fly here. Now, this fly is fantastic for searching around the edges of the lakes in the shallow margins when fish are feeding on frogs, when they're on bait fish that are up shallow, or they're just mooching around eating snails and other stuff. There are two main colors that I like this fly in. One is the natural version here, and then the other is the black version like that. Today, I'm going to tie for you the natural version, just because I think it's, I would probably say it's probably the less popular color of this fly. When you think of a Sloane fur fly, most people, or a fur fly, most people think of, the black, the darker version, but I do really rate the natural colored one. So we've just got a size 12 hook here, just some black thread, and I'm just going to wind this halfway down the body, just so I have kind of a base to tie the body of this fly onto and lock it down. The cool thing about this fly is there are only two ingredients, two materials you need. One of them is some rabbit zonker, and then the other one is some sort of dubbing to put around the front of this fly. So now all I'm doing for the body is I'm just tearing out some of this natural rabbit off my strip. Now I'm just going to lay the rabbit I've just pulled out along the shank of the hook there. You can tie this quite long, you can tie it short. I like it on the slightly smaller side. I like it tied slightly smaller, because I like how this fly is quite compact and it moves, a good amount of water for its size. Now, as I've tied that down, I actually let the material roll around the shank of the hook. And as I just adjust it like this, have a look, what you'll see is it now is like, almost a 360-degree cone around the shank of the hook, which is ideal for me. So, tie it to the front. Now the next part, super simple. We're just going to trim some of that excess fluff at the front, tie this down, and then we're going to finish it with a turn of dubbing around the front. Now I should point out how big how much material you tie into essentially the body, the tail of this fly will affect how much water it moves. If you're fishing in quite a dirty still water, or if the water's colored, then I would encourage you to put, a lot of material, make it nice and fat so it pushes and moves more water. If you're on a nice clear fishery, then, a profile like what I've tied there, that, slimmer classic version is probably ideal. I like it on the slimmer side as well because, this fly is not only good for frog feeders, it's also good for fish that are on, small bait fish and fry that are up shallow. So I like keeping a smaller, a thinner profile for that, because I feel like if it gets too fat, it starts to look, less natural. It looks less like a bait fish under the water, I should say. Now we're just dubbing some Peacock dubbing there around the front. This just creates a nice bit of contrast for the head on this natural colored fly. You can do a lot of things with this if you're tying these yourself. You can tie, with an orange thread and add a hot spot at the front, or you could put a bead on the front, for example. You can do a lot of different things with it. I like this fly tied, unweighted, because for me, it's a great option for searching the edges of the lake. Like I said, I don't want a bead that'll help this fly sink, because I like keeping it above the fish's eye line, and I don't want it hooking up on grass and stuff on the bottom. Just popping a couple of half hitches there in front of that thorax. Trim that off. I will finish that with some super glue afterwards, but the last thing I like to do is I like to just tease out a bit of that dubbing, because it adds a nice bit of flash and glint throughout the body of this fly. And like I said, the reason I like the natural version of this fly is I love how it stands out in the water. I love the contrast of it. So I do like the dark head against that lighter body. And there we go. A lovely Sloane Fur Fly. As I said at the start, you can get it in black. You can have it in natural. It is just a very good fly for the edges of the lakes early in the season when that water has risen over new ground. The fish are up there foraging, and this fly could be anything. It could be a frog, it could be bait fish, and it moves quite a lot of water. It's a small, compact fly that pushes water, has a lot of movement with the rabbit, and the fish eat it really, really well. So go out and give it a tie, give it a fish. If you don't tie flies, you can purchase this one at the Fly Life magazine shop. You can get the black version, you can also get the natural version. So I'll pop a link in the description below to where you can purchase that. As always, please like the video if you did, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and I look forward to seeing you all next one.